Hello heroes, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're diving deep into the blazing heart of destruction with the Incineration Pyromancer build in Ascension WoW. This isn't just fire damage, it's scorched earth, charred bone, and utter annihilation. If you ever wanted to watch anything around you burn while laughing maniacally, this one's for you. Let's break it down and light it up. Alright heroes, let's start with our talent points. We're going to start with our left-hand tree here. Please bear in mind that this is just a glitch. This does not exist for incineration. Every time I go over a skill, such as Blaze, I will demonstrate that skill. If it is a round one, this is a passive, so it boosts what it's connected to in most cases. So we're going to start off with Blaze. Blaze, burn an enemy for 180 fire damage, and additional 85 fire damage every 1.5 seconds, and reduces their healing received by 40% for 12 seconds. If we overheat, it instant casts and ticks 1% faster. Just to demonstrate Blaze, we select our target there, we cast Blaze on it, and as you can see, it will take continuous damage because of Blaze for the duration of the 12 seconds. Next we have Dragon Leap. Leap into the air, making your next Slagstone or Slagman instant cast while airborne and resetting its cooldown. Slagstone causes you to crash onto an enemy, dealing fire damage and slowing them by 85% for 1 second. Slagmen causes you to descend onto an ally, healing them and nearby allies within 4 yards for 12 to 15. So Dragon Leap, as it says, you leap into the air and you descend slowly. For passives, we're grabbing Scorching Sermon. Dealing damage with Scorching Ray or Draconic Fang extends the duration of Ignite and Blaze on your target by 1 second up to their maximum durations. For example, with Blaze, it has a 12-second duration, so as long as we're using Scorching Ray fast enough, this will keep up Blaze for the full 12 seconds. Blessing of the Firelance increases your critical strike chance by 2%. Infernus. Slagstone now deals 10% of its direct damage as periodic fire damage every 1 second for 6 seconds. Slagmend now heals for 5% of its direct heal as periodic every 1 second for 3 seconds. This periodic damage or healing cannot critically strike. Next we've got Boil. Incapacitate an enemy for 40 seconds, 8 seconds versus players, and remove all magic effects. Any damage dealt will interrupt this effect. So what Boil does is when targeting an enemy, of course this is going to be immune, but it will allow you to incapacitate an enemy, or NPC, for 40 seconds, or 8 seconds if you're in PvP. It will also remove any beneficial magic effects from the enemy. Next we have Meteor. Call down a meteor in an 8-yard area, dealing 436 flame strike damage to 8 enemies and disorienting them for 3 seconds. The meteor melts affected enemies' weapons, disarming them for 6 seconds. This is great for PvP, as if you can hit somebody with it, they will be unarmed, meaning they can't do mass damage to you or any of your teammates for at least 6 seconds. Meteor is a timed effect, but it has a nice area of effect. Next, we're going to have Flame Step. Rush forward 25 yards in a blaze of fire, dealing 220 fire damage to enemies in your path, dispelling all roots and slows from yourself. Overheat triggers with a 25% reduction cooldown. So what this does is just allows you to teleport. Ooh, I'm so glad we didn't just yeet ourselves off into oblivion. But it allows you to dash forward, doing damage to anything that you cross your path on. We picked up Al Dente. Targets affected by Boil now take 15% increased fire damage. This is still a good effect to throw at enemies, as this will increase how much fire damage you do to them. You could also do Boiling Point to reduce the cast time of Boil by 0.5 seconds if you feel like you're not getting it off fast enough. Apocalypse. Dealing fire damage has a 40% chance to slow the target's movement speed by 10% for 6 seconds, stacks up to 3 times. Cinder Field. Meteor now creates a field of cinders on the ground for 12 seconds, dealing 28 fire damage over 12 seconds. Flame Casting. Fire damage critical strikes now grant flame casting. Flame casting increases your spell haste by 5% for 20 seconds, stacks 5 times. Additional applications do not refresh duration. Molten Rhapsody. Reduces the cooldown of Flame Step by 20 seconds and Dragon Leap by 10 seconds. Dark Gaze increases the range of Flame Step by 10 yards. Volcanic Shell. Shields an ally absorbing 2,646 damage. While the shield holds, attackers take 303 fire damage each time they deal damage to the target. Lasts 10 seconds. Flame Shield just puts a nice bubble on you or an ally of your choice. Searing Speed. Dealing periodic damage now has a 10% chance to grant you Searing Speed. Searing Speed increases your movement speed by 50% for 2 seconds. Cataclysm. Launch into the air, dealing 10 fire damage and knocking back enemies within 6 yards. Upon landing, deal 10 fire damage and knock back enemies within 6 yards. Usable while stunned. So what that does is we launch into the air and we hit the ground again. This is actually a good skill to have in PvP if you're being surrounded and you need just a few seconds to breathe so that you can use, say, like Dragon Leap to get away, or even use Flame Step. Constant Burning. Reduces the cooldown of Spell Burn by 4 seconds and increases its duration by 1 second. Magma Guardian. Increases the effectiveness of your skin spells by 50%. Pyromancy. Direct critical strikes have a 20% chance to refresh a charge of Overheat. Flamer. Increases spell haste by 6%. You will need 2 points into this to get that. Focused Fire. Allows 40% of your mana regeneration to continue while casting and increases maximum mana by 3%. Slag Drenched. Slagstone increases all magic damage to the target takes by 3% for 8 seconds. Slag Mend increases all healing the target receives by 6% for 10 seconds. We also went with Ignis Ultimatus. It's a channeled ability, has a 1-minute cooldown, channel for 1.5 seconds, gathering a surge of fiery power before unleashing it in a 50-yard line, dealing 1,239 fire damage to enemies while also healing allies for 1,172. Ignores absorption, deflection, and reflection. Cannot be resisted. Flame casting increases the spell's damage and healing by 15% per stack. Real quick, just to talk about the passive before I show the skill. It now is guaranteed to critically strike, has a 20% more critical damage, and channels 0.5% or 0.5 seconds faster. This is normally a 2-second channel time. What this one does, as long as you are lined up directly and you use Ignis, it will blast everything in its range, including your allies, to heal them and do damage to your enemies. So that is our left-hand tree. Moving on to the right-hand tree, we're going to start off with Explode. Explode an enemy dealing 294 fire damage, increased by 30% for each of your Pyromancer periodic effects on the target, plus an additional 80% of the damage dealt over 4 seconds. Explode is a unique ability we really only want to use when procced, but it throws stones at everybody. Next we have Firefall. It's an instant cast with an 8-second cooldown. Call down streaks of fire upon enemies and up to 8 enemies within 15 yards of them, dealing 146 flame strike damage. Overheat triggers no cooldown. As you can see, it just goes and smacks everybody. Magnitude 10. Periodic damage dealt increases the damage of your next explode by 5% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 10 times. Cinder Scorch. Firefall now increases the damage affected enemies take from your Ignite and Blaze by 5% for 15 seconds, stacking 3 times. Hellscape. Increases the duration of Blaze by 5 seconds. Molten Mayhem. Explode now additionally deals 25% of its direct damage to your primary target and up to 8 enemies within 8 yards. This makes Explode become AoE. Flameswell. Scorching Ray and Slagstone now strike an additional nearby enemy. Scorched increases the damage of Scorching Ray and explode by 20%. Wreath of Flames. Periodic fire damage now has a 10% chance to grant a stack of flame casting, or 2 stacks if they critically strike. Flame casting increases your spell haste by 5% for 20 seconds, stacks 5 times. Additional applications do not refresh duration. Embrace the Fire. Increases the critical damage of Ignite and Blaze by 20%. Melt. Fire damage dealt has a 50% chance to apply a stack of Inferno to the target, reducing all resistances by 5 for 6 seconds, stacking 5 times. Sizzle. Periodic damage dealt by Blaze now increases the critical strike chance of your Slagstone, Explode, or Scorching Ray by 5% for 10 seconds, stacking 10 times. The stacks are consumed upon critical striking with one of these abilities. Flames of Focus. Adds 1 additional stack of flame casting and increases its duration by 5 seconds. Kindling Flame. Increases your fire damage by 5%. Meltdown. At 3 stacks of Apocalypse, subsequent applications will deal 92 fire damage to 5 enemies around the target. Slag Foundry. Increases critical strike chance of Slagstone by 15%. Will of the Phoenix. Increases the periodic damage caused by Slagstone through Infernus by 30%. White Hot. Increases the damage of Ignite and Firefall by 20%. Pyromaniac. Increases the critical damage of Slagstone and Explode by 15%. Fiery Passion. Increases the spell haste of all party and raid members by 3%. Furnace Fumes. Increases the damage dealt by Meltdown by 25% and allows it to stack 2 additional times. Ember Storm. Scorching Ray used on targets afflicted by Blaze now causes them to erupt in a pulse of flames, dealing 20% of the damage dealt to enemies within 8 yards. Wildfire. Every 5th flagstone transforms your next blaze into Wildfire. Wildfire, burn an enemy alive, dealing 453 fire damage, plus an additional 94 over 6 seconds. At the end of the duration, Wildfire will spread to an additional nearby enemy. Scalding Brand. Marks your target with a brand for 8 seconds, dealing 527 fire damage and causing them to take 20% increased damage from your periodic effects. Upon expiration or removal, it explodes, dealing 1,411 fire damage to up to 8 enemies within 5 yards and silencing them for 3 seconds. We also grabbed the passive of Sulfuron Harbinger, increases the critical strike chance of Blaze and Ignite by 10%, and increases their tick rate by 20%, and reduces their durations by 40%. Periodic critical strikes apply Sulfur Fumes. Sulfur Fumes, Scorching Ray, Slagstone, or Ignis Ultimatus will detonate the Sulfur Fumes to cause a Sulfuran Blast, dealing 244 fire damage to the target and extending the duration of Blaze and Ignite on them by 1 second. Let's show you Scalding Brand. All this does here is marks the target, and as it goes down, it puts a little bomb on them, and then it goes kaboom. So, those are all the points that we have in both trees. Now to talk about our leveling passives, when we hit level 10 and select Incineration as our spec, we remove the global cooldown of Slagstone, and it now has a 30% chance to cast twice. When we hit level 15, increases our spell haste by 15% of your intellect, your spell damage by 20% of your intellect, and your hit chance by 3%. At level 30, we get the passive that allows our periodic effects to critically strike. And at level 40, it allows our periodic effects to be affected by your spell haste. As far as our skins go, the best one that I recommend, especially for leveling and just all around it does really well for you, is going to be Ember Skin. This increases our critical strike chance by 3% and causes our damaging critical strikes to restore 3% of your maximum mana. This is how you can keep your mana up almost indefinitely as long as you have a high crit chance. Before I show rotation, let's go ahead and talk about our stats. Our primary focus is going to be Intellect, as this will give us more mana and it will increase our spell critical hit chance. As far as spell goes, we obviously want to make sure that we are getting this crit chance as high as we possibly can. 25 is going to be your hard cap, 20 is going to be your soft cap. So we want to try and be in between 20 to 25%. Haste rating is always a good thing to have. and should be your secondary focus on this, as this is going to allow you to cast things a little bit faster. Third and final on there, you can either pick penetration or hit rating. Hit rating is always going to be good because the more hit rating you have, the easier it is to hit raid bosses. However, if you do get to the 17% for raid bosses, then you can actually focus on penetration from there, as long as you're not sacrificing hit, haste, or crit. Now, just to kind of go over the rotation a little bit here, my primary focus, at least the way I set up my bars, is these are going to be, let's see, that's Slagman, I don't need that there. Typically, I put the first 3 as buffs. Then I do my main rotation is going to be here. Any quick spells I need are going to be here. And then these are going to usually be my big hits. Now, for the Pyromancer here, this is going to be my only buff, honestly. Actually, we need to pull out our other buff. There we go. So, what I want to do is make sure that I get my buff. Then I want to make sure that I hit Scalding Brand. I could throw Pillar of Flame if I really wanted to. But primarily I want to make sure that I use our Overheat to get Ignite to spread to everybody in range, which will allow us to get Slagminned off automatically. That will also help build stacks so that we can get a procced Explode on there. We want to make sure that we're throwing Meteor on the ground every time it comes up. We want to use Ignis Ultimatus every time it comes up. And then we want to just make sure that we are casting Scorching Ray and Firefall and Blaze in between all of that. So, just to show you how that looks for me, I'm going to pop this. I'm going to pop this. This. Then we could throw Ignis, Slagstone. I have a macro for Meteor. And it's just rinse and repeat. Anytime something comes off cooldown, you want to make sure you use it. But as you can see, our mana is basically staying at max. And there you have it. That is our rotation. I'm not sure why that is so low at 400. That should be much higher. But I'm not sure what's going on with our DPS tracker. Because we have not been in combat for 14 minutes. So somehow we were in combat for much longer. But that is the rotation for you guys. Well, that escalated quickly from hello to everything's on fire in about 5 seconds. If this build melted your screen, or at least your enemies, go ahead and drop a like, smash subscribe for more chaotic fun, and remember, stop, drop, and roll doesn't help when it's magic fire. Catch you next time, heroes. Peace out.